You know what the term niche is, right? According to Google, it means a comfortable or suitable position in life or employment, or a specialized segment of the market for a particular kind of product or service. Consider our previous episode Shantae, for instance. There is a market for Metroidvanias, plus games with a female lead, and Shantae fits both of them. Then there's games like Pocket Cars, Super Toy Cars Off-Road, and Toy Story Racer. Not the greatest games I've played, but far from the worst. These three are all very niche titles in the RC car racers genre. However, there is one game that's king to this niche little genre in my opinion. That game is Revolt. Acclaim's pinnacle of RC racing games is bar none a hidden gem. A game that symbolizes a bygone time where big companies tend to take some risk on trying something new and got it out of the door. As I said about being niche, today's episode will be a bit more specific. Did you know the game had not one, but 2 cancelled ports? Now charge up those NIM batteries, replace them Duracells, and burn 10th scale rubber in places you shouldn't drive your RC car at. So ladies, gents, trans and RC enthusiasts, welcome to Lost Legends. Revolt's pulled ports. If you watched the previous episode about my inserts, well, I've updated on that. I have this link tree thing, which is technically a nexus point of links to places I'm at. There is a wide range of links like my Discord server, my main channel, r/Lost Legends, Newgrounds, and recently Wisp, where I post my old trash art daily. If this video gets a whopping 10 likes, and you reach 50 subscribers until the next episode, I'll start posting random pics of bunnies on my community tab, if I ever had one. So let's get it on! As all tales begin, we start with the shiny rainbow arrow of Acclaim. Many of you Zoomers don't know about this company apart from being associated with the dino-nuking adventures of a time-traveling Native American. Acclaim was part of the round table of the North American AAA publishers, alongside with EA, Activision, Midway, and THQ. One day in 1997, Acclaim wanted another racer on their list, attempting to cash in the Mario Kart craze. They tasked their newly acquired UK developer, Probe Entertainment, to come up with the goods. The concept was created by artists Paul Phippen and Simon Harrison, who made an idea of small RC cars roaming around in real-world spots, like suburban neighborhoods, gardens, museums, and even grocery stores. During development, it was dubbed GO! Before they come up with the final title. Although most of these are as planned, but they had to scrap a few ideas, such as the possible Duracell cross-promotion, few levels like the Cancel Estate, a construction site, sprint tracks, and even various cars. After 2 years since initial development in 1997, Revolt made its release in August 1999. This leads to our next question. What is the pinnacle of RC racing games about? The game is released on the PC, PS1, Nintendo 64, and later an updated Dreamcast port. Revolt is a mix between Mario Kart, RC cars, and actual physics, meaning that if you shot someone with a bottle rocket, they don't spin around or explode into pieces. They are sent flying. You drive one of 35 cars with the likes of RC Bandit, Dust Mite, Mouse, Aquasonic, RC Sand, Zipper, Toyka, Cougar, and a freaking Panda on wheels. Their handling are also distinct from each other, like Rotor could drive while upside down, Humma being the fastest car but very unstable, Bertha Ballistics being the fast heavyweight, Pest Control is useful for getting that one practice star in Supermarket 1, and R6 Turbo being so light one bottle rocket would send them flying across the room. Also, it could float. With 35 cars, there's also 13 tracks, plus 4 battle arenas, ranging from the aforementioned neighborhoods, grocery stores, museums, toy rooms, cruise ships, a garden, and a ghost town. If you have the Dreamcast version, then you get the exclusive Rooftops level. These tracks are quite fun, and heck, they're atmospheric at times if you turn off the music. I'm not saying the soundtrack sucks. The soundtrack is a techno banger composed by Stephen Root, Larry Lush, Phil Earle, Dominic Glynn, and Simon Robertson, who also did a Nintendo 64 version. The PC and Dreamcast port are well received, but the Nintendo 64 and PS1 ports weren't so hot, and rightfully so. The console ports could only run half or a quarter the frame rate. The N64 had some expansion pack enhancements, and the PS1 is heavily stripped down. Well, despite those, Revolt had some life long after Acclaim was gone, with an official arcade version by Tsunami in 2004, and a mobile port by Big Bit in 2011. If you wanted a definitive version, then the footage shown is RVGL, which is a community-made source port running on OpenGL, which included a lot of new additions that the vanilla version doesn't have, and also highly compatible with mods. Now I gave you what Revolt's about in brief. Now it's time to talk about some cancelled ports. One that would have been the best console version in my opinion, and another that is a curious handheld port. Let's talk about those. Maybe one day I'll talk about Revolt's plethora of playable demos, a leaked dev build, and even the source code, but that's not the main focus on this episode. When it comes down to cancelled ports, we have the Xbox and the Game Boy Color. Now, the only Xbox builds we have in the public are from February and August 2002. There is an Xbox Live version, but that was more of a stripped down variant made to test the online capabilities. Before I continue, we need to talk about a new addition to this show, the Tangent Chapter. So, the reason why I made this because it needs context. Emulation isn't perfect, let's put it at that. Most emulators I use like MGBA, DuckStation, Dolphin in an upcoming episode, and PCSX2 runs great. Not perfect like PCSX2 still can't run a few games properly like Jack X. Project 64 requires fiddling with the plugins for certain games in order to make it look good, and even the Dolphin had some issues. When it comes down to other consoles like the Xbox, then a little over 1/10 of its entire library is playable, if you're using an emulator called CXPX Reloaded. So what games are compatible? Well, CXPXR did log the game's compatibility, meaning that games like Jet Set Radio Future, Burnout, Dead or Alive, and Rayman Arena are all playable. Sadly, Revolt is not amongst them. I tried a different emulator called XEMU and no luck. So I contacted PTOP Online's Andrew Borman, who got the game running on CXPXR, but after a brief conversation, my efforts are fruitless. Hell, I even tried the older versions of the same emulator he used, and to no avail. However, I haven't tried any other game that isn't Revolt, so I got me JSRF to test if this isn't some sort of weird, unidentified issue on my end. Guess what, kids? My PC understood the concept of love. Keep this in mind that these two Xbox emulators aren't old. These been around for a few years right now. Microsoft did a bang up job keeping this console secure, but consider that this is like some sort of PC disguised as a game console is an understatement. This is custom hardware made for the DirectX powered system. I'm not sure if this console is notoriously difficult to develop games on, if that's the case, or the coders who made the older Xbox emulators misunderstood its hardware. Now back to the show. You know, I realized I forgot something. The game's leaked source code contained assets not supposed to be seen, like the old Rooftops level and the lots and lots of Max files. There's assets for the console versions, and yes, Xbox assets, So I downloaded the source code from archive.org, draw some rabbits, access the stuff, and it was a waste of time. Not because I can't run the game, it's because the XBE isn't even in there. The XBE being the executable for the Xbox. Also, no, I don't have that kind of time to figure out how to compile these source codes. That's not the focus. For now, I'm showing you the vanilla PC build. No RVGL port except this version 1.2 patch which came with it. I don't have the physical Xbox for making this video, by the way. To give you the brief on what the Xbox versions are about, it plays similar to the PC versions, albeit with some minor graphical changes. One thing that steps up from the previous console ports is that it runs at a solid 60 FPS, no cheats needed. And Revolt is not only the very first Xbox game to have live support, but also the very first Xbox Live game to have voice chat. Keep this in mind that this is like 3 to 10 months before Xbox Live went live to the public. If it was finished and released, probably in the fall season, then the Xbox version of Revolt would have been a step up from the Dreamcast version, and go toe-to-toe with the original PC release in terms of performance. Albeit without the additional content that the Dreamcast had. This would have been a great port. Why they shelved it? My answer is not exactly clear. I'm not sure. Some say that this one was canned when Acclaim was struggling to keep up with the competition. I did some digging around and found out that most of the original Revolt team wasn't even involved in this version, and ran by other members. I'm guessing that Acclaim needed to cut their losses. I mean, 2002 is the year Acclaim enters the downward spiral, featuring desperate advertising like naming your son Turok to promote an upcoming Lost Legends episode, or put literal ads on tombstones for Shadow Man 2. Yes, those are real. In the end, there isn't a definitive answer why the Xbox version fizzled out. I'm just saying. So what about the Game Boy Color version? For 20 years, there's no substantial evidence whether or not Revolt GBC ever existed, and the only remnant shown was the brief mention on a rare Revolt poster promoting it. In 2019, I made this piece of mock of what the GBC version of Revolt would look like. I picture it as an isometric racer with loose recreations of the PC version's tracks. This would trigger the Revolt Discord into searching again, until they stumble upon Quang Yuan. Quang's an indie game developer living in the UK. He made some games, notably Mau Mau Castle and recently a homebrew GBC port of Jetpack. He's one of the few people responsible for developing the handheld port of Revolt. He's also generous enough to post a ton of screenshots of the game in development, some documented history, and even a screenshot from a pitch demo that got him hired to make the port. Unfortunately, we don't have the GBC port in our hands, but he said that the code was later reused on a couple unlicensed games, one of which is called Race Time by Rocket Games. This is the closest thing we have for Game Boy Color Revolt. It's not the prettiest looking game and it's boring. Jesus, what were you thinking about inputting such colors? So, how did it got cancelled? Unlike the previous, we have such an answer. The game was almost complete, but got the shaft a couple weeks before its planned April 2000 release. At one point, the game broke when they tried to implement music. Not the only problem. The levels Quang claimed are too big. They're falling behind schedule and due to limited space. They almost ran out of it pretty quickly. This is where Acclaim would give the port a quick and quiet death as this is not going to fly off the shelves anytime soon. Understandable. And if you want to know about some deep Mace lore, I was planning on making a standalone video around that time after Twisted Metal, the black sequel that never was. I scrapped it because I wanted footage for this game, and unfortunately I got none. But this was 3 years ago and there's one thing I have to do, is to DM Quang for this. During production I still have no reply. Great. You may think there would be some sort of pre-releases for these ports. Well, we don't have any advertising for the game apart from an Xbox Live video.
Hit it, Grasshopper.
My name is Chuck.
Okay, Chuck. Pick a car. This is so easy.
Well, what's up with this?
Oh, well, this is the lobby. See how there are all these people hanging out? We have Thrasher, Roadhog, there's Oil Slick.
Oh, cool.
Cool. What's so cool, Dorkmaster?
Dude, they can hear me, and I can hear them. That's the coolest thing about Xbox Live, the voice. Grasshopper's got his Xbox communicator, and so does Roadhog and Oil Slick. And anyone else who's playing can use one too.
Whoa, did you hear that guy, Oil Slick? He sounds like a good racer.
That's another thing that rocks about voice. Voice masking. There's this thing called voice masking.
You can change your voice
To fit any game or mood.
What do you think about that?
Although we do have 2 more Xbox builds, there isn't much to talk about really. One's from January and the other's from June. So what about the Game Boy Color? Well, I only showed you a couple of screenshots, so here's the rest while I go out and refill my coffee. Alright, now we're moving on to the miscellaneous stuff. For the 2 pulled ports I can't get into for this video, we do have a reasonable amount of content. One is from the leaked source code of the game. In the Xbox folder, there was going to be some new cars that are the, quote, evil variants of Toika, Fat Slug, and Candy Pebbles. These reskins are made to be a more better version than the stock variants. I'm not sure how these are meant to be, but I'm guessing special 1v1 boss races on a few select tracks. Defeating them would probably unlock them, but that's just me guessing. Also, the probe UFO would have been a proper unlockable as it contains its own box. Inside the Game Boy Color sprite data of race time, there are remnants of Revolt's power-ups. However, these were never shown in game. What are shown is the name wheel, the 321 go icons, and most of its fundamental codes. Most of the old Revolt content are likely overwritten and reskinned. There's one level that features a ramp to jump like in this screenshot here, but the rest of the levels are boring and one of them is mostly blank. This was sold for money, by the way. Revolt is still one of my favorite games in general. I play this on occasion, but this one was planned to expand, but never got off, due to Acclaim being Acclaim. It was planned to have a gold edition which includes new content that was cut during its initial development, and its PlayStation exclusive spin-offs, RC Revenge and RC Revenge Pro, was going to be an actual sequel. When the IP was bought out by Throwback Entertainment, and then Korean studio WeGo Interactive, it did saw a new lease of life. But those are absolute dire to the point the wiki never made pages off of them. At one point, Paul Phippen, yes, the guy who created the original game, did some concept art for Revolt 3 with the space station map, which was never made. Then again, WeGo's Revolt sequels are unplayable when their servers shut down in 2017. Nowadays, WeGo is no more, and the Revolt IP now belongs to another Korean company, Super Day Incorporated, and the game's been relisted on GOG without the Community 1.2 patch. So you can play this game in all of its vanilla 1.10 glory. I got a hunch that this Super Day company isn't what it seems. It reeks of sus, if you know what I'm saying. Now we're at the halfway point of the season. I'm gonna take a breather, and next time I'll talk about another game I wanted to make for years, but never got to. Make sure you follow the White Rabbit if you want more Lost Legends, and follow the official subreddit. If you want to know about my weird antics, then Mace 2.0 is where I am at. That's all for today, and I'll see you later. Bye.